Hi guys, this is a use case scenario of how to use VisusCity's road templates in your own project. This is a project I'm working on. As you can see, this is OSN data which I've imported of real buildings and the roads. And for this project, I needed to do this intersection and that intersection according to the real life buildings that is built. So this is very unique and a good example of how to adjust the templates to achieve a look like this. So you'll see there's many uh, assets here. There's a two road, three road to a two road, two lane curve. There's islands, and I will show you how to do these. I'm just going to fly around so you can have a closer look. You'll see the red brick and a curve to grass, curve to red brick, and again there's a similar intersection here. A folder and again a 3-lane to a 2-lane. Alright, so I'll start off with just basically I think in these two boxes I'll just scar dummies. Okay, the road templates, when you're in your project folder, you've got the content. Then you will see VisusCity, under VisusCity assets, and then the roads folder, and then the templates folder. Here are all the template blueprints for the road assets. Okay. In the route folder, these are all straight roads with no junctions or bridges or intersections like this one. Alright. You'll see the naming says 1L, 1L, which stands for 1 lane or 2 lane or 4 lane. And then the bends is for a 45-degree bends. And basically straight lines and bends are all in the root folder here. For this one, to create something like this, I'm going to use the 2L 01 without a bend and drag and drop it here. Okay, so how the templates are set up to work. I'm going to put it right next to this road to explain. Is a 2-lane. So for the dummy car, I've made each lane 2.5 meters, 2.5 meters. So this is a 5-meter width lane road. But according to the map that I had to use, I had to make this also, yeah, it's 5. So the road width stays 5. Okay, so let me just go back. If you dragged and dropped it, you'll see it drops it into the root folder of that. A good way to always to try and keep it nice and clean is once you've created a new folder, I'm just going to call this for the tutorial, is to drag your roads all into one folder and to keep it all there, as the roads can get quite a lot and you have a lot to browse through. So this road is on the tutorial. Then you will have to use the BP select. You'll see it's quickly going to go through which are the things you're going to have to look through. Make sure you're always selected here or not general. All. Once you got the BP selected, then you'll see the drop downs of road curves, road lines, and road pillars. Those 4 drop downs on this BP are what we're going to work for, and of course the transform. Now, important thing to always look out for. I've just made a new recording. I've moved this back in. You'll see I don't have the tutorials now for a few reasons. So when you move the blueprint, you'll see it always creates these subfolders in wherever the blueprint is. So it's created up there. So at the end of the tutorial, I'll show you just to move all these into a new folder and then regenerate them all to keep them all in one folder, for instance. So whenever you make an adjustment, it keeps on regenerating these decal actors under this blueprint. Guys, so to help you what's happening in the folder wise. For instance, when you go to the roads drop down, you can go clean up. Okay, I'm just going to regenerate. Let me show you what happens if I just delete this blueprint. Okay, so I'm selecting the blueprint and I'm deleting it. So what happens, you'll see the decal lines are still stays there. Using shift left click, I collapse all the folders and click again. I can see all the folders. Yes, I've deleted the blueprint, but it holds the generated folder there with the actors in there. They stay there. So that's not what you want when you delete, because it can get very messy. You can just select the one actor, or you can, as I showed, browse there. But you can select the one actor. If you don't see the actors, press G on your keyboard to see for games mode to see all the actors. So now I've got that selected, so okay, it's that one. I select its parent folder, I right click, select all descendants, and I delete, apply to all, delete. That's in case you've accidentally just deleted the blueprint and you still have the actors there. So, and then you still have that folder there, you still have to delete that folder. So that's a bit messy. So I'm going to show you what the right way to do is. Bringing this one again in. Right, under the blueprint you'll see the roads drop down. You've got the cleanup, basically removes all the generated stuff, and you can regenerate again. So the best way to practice for these to work, rather the best way, is to clean up first, then press the delete button, and that way the folder with all the decal actors is also not available there anymore. Another important thing is, so all these blueprint actors uses spline controls, meaning you'll see all these roads it's got a spline with two vertices, all these in this road for instance. So your normal spline editing tools can be used to edit these roads. But this is just a small but. I did speak to one of the developers. They are going to try and fix this issue, which was brought up with a few other developers for Unreal Engine version 5.5. Because this uses a PCG system that spawns actors and not static meshes, there is a small glitch though, which I'm going to try and show you. I'm not going to show you the glitch, what happens, but I'm rather going to show you what you need to do for it not to happen. Is if you want to add vertices to your spline, I first do the cleanup. Then you've got your normal editing tools like Alt Drag to create a vertex. So there's a new vertex added, and you can move the vertices. Oh, sorry, I didn't. That's not. I didn't select the vertex. Double click again. Then that's the vertex with its two tangent control points. One is over there and one is over there. So you can still select one of the tangents, move them around, or take the vertex. If you Alt drag, you create a new vertex with its tangents, and thus you can add vertices to your spline, and that's all cool. Once all it's done, you'll see you've got the spline selected here. Go back to the BP on the roads and regenerate, and then you've got once it's regenerated to the new vertex, you can still you can go crazy and edit your vertices and so forth. But even if I want to delete this vertex, you need to first go to the BP, clean up all the actors so that the actors isn't spawned or generated. Clean it up first, then go to your vertex, delete it, then you can go back to your BP and regenerate. It's a small glitch. They are going to look into it so that it doesn't crash, because you'll notice if you try and make a copy of this vertex, Unreal Engine crashes totally. Okay, so back to the blueprint. and your roads drop down. There's a projectile landscape. My project here doesn't use a landscape. This is just a flat plane. So if I'm going to project a landscape, it will disappear. There's no landscape, but that is in case you do have a landscape, it will conform to the topology of over the hills and the ditches of your landscape will drop down. Okay, road width, plain and simple, it changes the width of the road. So this is 7 meters, 8 meters wide. You'll see it keeps the amount of lanes and it kind of like multiplies the length of the splines according to, but if you're going to go very big like 20, you'll see the yellow line is pretty much far away from the edge, etc., etc. I'm going to take it back to 5. And then DA road stands for data asset road. You can browse to this data asset. All these roads here uses the same DA data asset of road, which means the surface of the road, which is this tar surface you'll see right there. So they all use the same asset. But let's say for this road I want to use a different asset. I just wanted to regenerate that. I don't know why it happens sometimes. Okay, so the data asset, you can browse to the data asset. You'll see there's one for the road and a highway. They both look the same, but to explain to you how the surface of this road, I'm opening up the DA road. You'll see that the sample distance is 100 by 100. If I make it, for instance, 500 by 500, you'll see it will regenerate. It take a little while to regenerate all the roads. You'll see that it works on blocks that it generates on increments of 500 by 500 all over for the surface of the road. Now you will need, if you're gonna make a very sharp turn, you'll see sometimes, if I take this back, so those are the distance between the blocks, and the scales is, for instance, the scales X and Y, how the blocks are generated. Let's give it a minute. There, you see it generates bigger blocks. I'm just going to put it back to it. What I'm going to show you, for instance, if I do a very sharp turn, let's take this vertex, for instance, and I'm going to rotate this vertex very sharp. Make it a very sharp turn, just to give you understanding what happens. I'll even make it even more sharper. So the road's got quite a big turn. You'll see here, for instance, of this curves, this type of gaps can happen. If I set this back to default of 100 by 100 on the road surface, you're going to see, for instance, this gap can happen. So if you've got a very sharp turn road and you need, for instance, which will come in black then, you can create a copy of this DA road, and rather to close up those gaps, you'll decrease this amount to say, I'm just going to go 20 by 20. Decrease the amount, which means it's going to create more blocks, which will be a bit more system intensive. Thus, you don't want to do this on every blueprint or every situation, because then, for instance, there the gaps are closed. And then, of course, it's under the data asset, you also have the road material. You'll see it uses the MI road tar. You can browse it by clicking that button. There's some other materials here that you can add. For instance, if I say, okay, all these roads must be brick paving, it will create, swap out all the road surfaces to be a red brick paving. Okay, so setting it back to road star, and it will regenerate all the roads. To create a different road surface just for this road, I can go to its DA road data asset, browse to the data asset. Sorry, I've made a previous one before. I make a copy of it, and I call it, for instance, road sample. and I'm just going to move this to my custom projects data assets. It's called road sample. I can drag and drop that into the road sample. I can go edit it, and also it's any material. You can actually basically drag and drop any material, for instance here. So if I go materials, let's say glass, then this road only has a glass surface. Roads materials, getting back to the tar material, and save. Okay, so that is the roads drop down, all those things. I'm going to move on to the road lines. Okay, so road lines, you'll see I have a spawn lines on or off. It will turn it off only for this BP, on or off. While I'm on this subject, there is a global variable which you also should include. If you don't include it, none of your roads will spawn any lines. To find this blueprint global variable, it's under VisusCity templates. You'll see a BP global variables which you can just drag and drop into your scene. I already have one, so they actually not a good idea to have two. But under the global variable, you'll see there's a spawn road lines global variable which I can turn off or on, which means it will turn it off or on for all the roads in the scene. This is very important as if your scene gets very big with lots of roads, as the VisusCity demo, and you want to do editing on your roads, etc., it's very slow. So it's rather better to do your under the global variables to turn off the spawning of all the road decals. Once that happens, your scene will be much more quicker and easier to edit. But then, of course, you won't be able to see the lines, but at least you can work on the basic road structure first, and then only on the places where you're going to know the camera is going to be close by in your project or not, you can maybe activate this spawn lines only on those assets. Moving on to the road line still, you'll see there is a structure set or an array of structure sets. You'll see there's 1, 2, 3 entries. That is for the 3 lines, the 2 yellow lines and the middle line. Drop down, that is the middle line, that is the yellow line, and that's the other yellow line. Okay. So, for instance, if I want to, like this road, it's got 3 lanes, I can make on the index 01, I can make a duplicate right here. We'll create both of them on the same. The duplicate will be replaced index 1 and the rest will move down as index 2 to 3. So for this index, on position 0, on the X, it's on the Y, it's in the center of the road. So if it's 0.5, it's 0.5 on the one side, minus 0.5, minus 0.5 on the other side. You'll see the yellow lines, for instance, on this road, the yellow lines, the line is much closer, so instead of 0.8, I think it was 0.95. If I make it too much, you'll see it move onto the curb, so 0.9, and the basic stuff. Line width, can make it thinner. The length, you won't see the length on these because I'm spawning quite a lot over each other, so that when the road burns, it seems like one line still. Okay, but to make a dotted line, for instance, I'd say let's keep the length there, and I'll say the spacing must be like 500. You'll see now it's a dotted line. Make it smaller, and each line must be, let's say, 0.5. Now I've got a dotted yellow line over there. So each line you can modify with this, and of course the materials you can also change it to. For the lines, the decal, it goes with these decal materials work the best. You can, for instance, use a normal material, but I won't suggest it. It works. It works kind of like normal materials won't work. It goes fall back to default. So you have to use a decal material. Um, There's the yellow one. So if you want to change and make an extra one, you can just duplicate this material, for instance, and make your own color. Go edit it, make it your own color, etc., etc. So blue, got a blue purple one. So those to change the material colors, line colors. Then as you saw, so this road, you'll see I've had 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. I'm just going to collapse all these again. Remember, it's shift click to collapse or not collapse. You'll see I've got the 4 entries here. So another cool method you can do is if I select, for instance, this road, you'll see it has the 4 entries. You can right click on this space here and you can copy all these arrays, the whole array, and I go to this road and I can right click, paste, it will replace and exactly copy all these road lines to this road lines. So that's another way to copy and paste your road assets. Now with the road curves, you'll see it's very much a similar process. We've been to road lines, road curves. We've got spawn curves, yes or no. And then you've got 2 data assets for the 1 and 2. One is for the one side, the other is for the other side. In this case, both are the same. Uses the same data asset, which is road curves 02. That is all the road curves is on the data assets, road curves. These 3, you will see, okay, the 0 means there is 0 curve. 1 is a curve, just a curve, and 02 is a curve with a paving, curve with a paving piece. Okay, so for basically then for that road, I just used the red brick curve paving. So it's the paving. Let's see, there's one for red brick 1, and I made a checker one as well. Let me show you just quickly. So that's the normal red brick curve. It's got the curve and a red brick paving, and the checker one is just basically a checkered curve with a checkered dot line curve. So as you can see, it's very easy to just change the curves. For that one on the left side, at the grass, paving grass. Other side here, it's just the curve, the grass. So that's just swapping data assets for the curves left or right. Looking at the road curve data assets itself, you'll see it's very much the same process. Look at this road curve. If you open up the road curve, you'll see it's also an array of structure sets very similar to your road lines. For this road curve, you'll see there's actually, it's only just 2 entries, which is this white curve right here, and the bigger one is the paving, the grey on the right side. So if you take the white curve, you'll see you've got the curve mesh, it's a 1 by 1 rounded cube. You can change this of any static mesh which you would prefer, and then a material, and you can transform each block with these transform things, and then the sample distance is the distance between each cube. You'll see, for instance, if I increase this distance, and with the data assets, you have to just regenerate the blueprint for to regenerate the curves. You'll see now I've got a distance of 200 between each cube for this part. And then for the, if I make 200 here as well, you'll see how the side curves is also generated with blocks, stretched by 3, so it's 3 times as long, etc. So that's how you basically build your curves, just by changing, playing with the sample distance, your scale, the rotation, the transforms, just to generate something that looks like a solid mesh, basically. And you'll see if you curve your road, your curve is too strong and then the gaps are in between, you'll just have to decrease the sample distance so that there are more elements close up the gaps. And that's basically how I did all these curves. You'll see, for instance, this curve right here, it's called a checkered. On this side, red curves paving checkered. If you look at it, you'll see it's got 6 elements, right? It's the 1 for this little lip here, and then 2, 3, and then I've got 3 rows of bricks going along. Unlike this one here, where I just stretched one block, I had to use 3 rows, otherwise the texture also stretches. It doesn't know. For this curve, for instance, on this side, you'll see on the one side I don't have a curve over here. Let me just move this out so you can see just the element. You'll see I don't have a curve on this side. And then I've got 1, 2, 3 elements on this. I've made a separate data asset, copied that data asset into here, and you'll see it's 3 elements of these. So it's only 1 row of bricks for the paving, 1 for the curb, and this little lip here. And basically that's how I did all the curves, yes. For these extremely turned around pieces, you'll see it's also just a curve, but I've added an extra point in between, turn it around, and it also just uses the 0 on the one side, which is the inner side of this side. On the outer side, I also use the same data asset for filling up those steps right there. I hope this all makes sense. I think I've got another example here. There's a curve that has got a little ramp, goes up a little bit, as you can see. That data asset is called small right ramp right. I have to make 1 for the right and 1 for the left. Same principle. It's got 2 assets, 1 for the left, and then the one that I've added rotation on is this little lip. You'll see I've rotated this one by minus 10 degrees on the x-axis, and on this side it will be 10 degrees on the y-axis, just to add that little lip. So that was curves, just in general. Again, the templates, which we mostly spoke about, there's one asset which you can turn to the spline with 2 points, curve on both sides. Now comes the junctions. You'll see, okay, this is also a junction because it's from 1 to 2. It's a 2-lane to a 1-lane. And junctions is always to do with when there's a curve involved. And in this case, it's also this. It treats this as also as a curve, this one straight line. Junctions, you'll see, which is a little bit different. Instead of road lines, you still have road lines, but you don't. You can add lines here, but it will only be on the one road, which is the first one is 2 to 1, which will make lines for that. In this case, I didn't add any road lines, but the curve lines is very similar to road lines. So the curve 1 is on the one side and the curve 2 is on the other side. This is just for, in this case, to create a line on this straight line here and that little white line on that line there. You'll see the 2 entries right there, curve lines 1, curve lines 2. So let's say this is also a junction blueprint. I'll show you now where this blueprint is. You'll see it has a road line of FAB members. Oh, sorry, yeah, that's not a junction. That's just a normal road line, which I've used also just for that. Where did I also use a junction? Now that's the only place I've used a junction actually in this case. Yeah, okay, so let me also talk about road lines. This one's road lines, you'll see that little white lines I've made a special line just with a very few, it's quite width with the widthness of 5. So if you make it a width of 1, you'll see what I've done there. So instead of that thickness, I've made it quite a big line going across. And where else can I explain? So for instance, if I hide this part, you'll see you're going to have gaps. So wherever for instance, there I wanted to have this dotted line going like that. So I made another separate element with only line in the middle going for that little part there and there and there. Then I made just one for this part, which only has the big road here and the curve, which is the same as that curve. So it's a little bit of a puzzle putting together, but eventually you can get something quite neat and similar to this. What else can I say quickly? Yeah, it's basically all I needed to say. Oh yes, we'll see the junctions. So that's your normal, just one road of two things. And then junctions is where you'll find elements like what I started off with for this 2 to 1 junction. You'll see it's a 2-lane to 1 lane. We've got this version right here, which goes from 2-lane to 1 lane in the middle. All of these elements, then you can adjust with the spline settings. For instance, you can move these curved lines. You can just select all these vertices, although I could have selected all. Move it up a bit and change it. You'll see it changes as such. So that is basically how everything is set up together. Let me just quickly. You'll see I've got a 2 to 1 lines and cross junctions. I'll show you now at the end of the video where to find the level for all the blueprints so you can see what all of this means. And yeah, also just back to the road curbs, you'll see also like the bridges. For instance, let's take the ramp bridges as well. The curbs on these are done very similar, the same. You'll see the elements are for a bridge. I've got this one element for the curb, then a paving for this, and this one for the railing. And then I've also added one big one for the below, so that the bottom has got a curb on the one side. So if you open it, it's the DA, Road Curbs Bridge. If you actually open the data asset, you'll see that is the 4 elements for creating the bridge curve, putting it together. If that makes sense. And then the pillars also works on data assets. So you'll see the road pillars, very much similar to road curves. You can spawn the pillars or not spawn the pillars. And the data assets are also created exactly the same way as the curves are created. It's a cube, block cube with a material, with transforms, and every 3 meters it's going to create a pillar. And finally, looking at the road library level, you'll find it under VisusCity levels. You'll see VisusCity roads. If you open it up, so I did actually activate now all the lines on the global variable. Just want to show you where that is, the global variables. I did spawn the road lines. You'll see if I zoom out, they disappear. Just under the render settings, you can just double click on the console variables, which sets up a variable to actually show the road lines more from the distance. You can just double click it to activate it. Oh, it does, yeah, it does fade out at a distance. It's set to a certain distance. Decal is on set to multiplier by 2. If I set it more, I can zoom out more, but for now I'm not going to set it more. That is just to do how far you can see the lines in the distance. Like there you don't really want to see the lines, but if you go closer, perhaps want to see the lines. So these are all the assets that I've done. Those are all the templates that you'll find on the roads templates folder. Just minimize this, templates. Okay, so in the root directory, you'll see it's all these ones on the left-hand side. Sorry, no, those are all the ones basically, just these plain ones here, and your curves of 90 degrees, your curves of 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 45 degrees, for the 1 lane, 2 lane, and 3 lanes. Those are all set here. If you want to know, if you click on an object, let's say clicked on that object, you can, if you want to know where to find it, you can go on the edit, BP, click there, and then, sorry, I just want to move this window. Out of windows. And then you just browse it by that button right there, and it will show you, oh, it's this blueprint right here. Okay, so that's how you will access each blueprint and see get its location. And yeah, basically everyone you'll see the curves, for instance, you can change the curves of each of these. Let's go red brick, and you can change the data assets of each, you know, and project to replace with whichever curve asset you want to use, not use. Right. So those are the mains, and then on the mains you'll see junctions. Junctions is where most of all these on this from there, they are from 2-to-1s, 1-to-1s, your cross junctions, your T junctions, your roundabouts. I've kind of grouped them. You see, this is from 2 lane to 1 lane, 2 lane to 2 lane, 4 lane to 2 lane, 4 lane to 4 lanes. There's your 2 lane to 2 lane, 2 lane to 1 lane, 2 lane to 4 lane to 2 lane, 4 lane to 4 lane. Your Y junctions and your roundabouts over there. Roundabouts. Now all these I've also basically incorporated, made templates for you to use as well on the bridge. So they're basically a copy of those, but just with the bridge and pillar activated. The road pillars are activated. For instance, this one you'll see the curves are activated. The lines are, the pillars are activated, and then using bridge curbs instead of the normal curbs for the little railings on the side as well. Okay, so believe it or not, all the sections are here. I've just rearranged them as such, just to have a preview of actually how they can be used. Again, all of these are editable via the spline editing tools. As such, you can take this vertex and you can move it, rotate it, and it will adjust accordingly. Okay, so I'm being here, this respawning. When all the lines are visible, it is a bit slow, so I do recommend turning off all the lines. And here are just the highways. The highways only have basically a main highway road, which I've created with 8 lanes, 4 on each side, and it's got a, sorry, I just moved away there, and it's got on and off ramps, basically templates for that, and then bridges as well for those highways. I've just disabled the spawn road lines now just to get more better performance on navigating. Was something to mention about the bridges. You'll notice um, the, they're all working. It's based on a snap distance of 1,000. If you put your snap distance of 1,000, which is 10 meters, basically. So best to work by that, especially with the up and down. On the level side, you'll see, for instance, um, uh, for the layers to line them up, basically, if you want them lining up vertically, you'll see it's exactly 2,000. So if that's 0, that is 1,000. So that's 2,000 level. That's 3,000 level. That's 4,000 level. Just to line them up exactly if you want. Of course, you don't need to use snaps, but snaps are there easily if you especially have a lot of stuff that you want to put together very quickly. So the basic principle, for instance, um, if you have if I have an object, you can actually copy this transform of this whole object. You right click on the copy part here, copy all properties. I want to line this one up to that as well. I paste all properties. Just do this again. Copy all properties on this one. I want to paste all the properties and it's line them up. And if I snap on 1,000, it should line up pretty much fast for you to actually get these assets lined up easily, as you can see. Okay, and then what is the last thing that I wanted to mention? Okay, for the more advanced users, you can, just to show you where the PCG graphs are. So again, all these main ones, the templates in your roads templates, they basically just use the PCG road as PCG graph. That you'll find on the roads PCG. You'll see there's a PCG road. Just to quickly show you, that's the road surface of this thing, and then here's the part for creating the lines, here's the part for creating the curbs, because those roads normally just have 2 curbs, one on one side, one on the other side, and basically the curbs and the pillars. So that is the PCG graph, or if you want to reverse engineer and see how this is done, they do use create road curbs function, sub function for those parts. And then all the cross junction ones. The junction ones, again, is all the ones with curves in it. They're not just one spline. You'll actually see I've got splines for the main road, and then a spline for the secondary road, and I've got if you go, you'll see I have a curve line 1, 2, 3, 4 for each curve. So you can also have a different curve set up for curves. You'll see there's 1, 2, 3 curve, 3, 4 places for the 4 curves to replace the data assets. It's got the walking lines and the stop lines, which you can adjust via the spline editing tools. Now all these junction blueprints, they will use the road junction, PCG road junction, which is similar to the road, but a little bit more complicated because there's got 2 road surfaces to generate. And there's also a road surface to generate along the curves and the lines for the main road, and then the curve lines for each curve. Depending, it's up to 4 mostly, so depending how many curves, it's 4 curves and curves, and then you get the walk lines, the walk sight lines, the stop lines, the curbs, 4 curbs, and the pillars again. So that's for the most more advanced users who knows PCG graphs, and to see how I did generate these assets via PCG generation. Right, guys, I hope this helps, and leave any questions in the comments below, and hopefully this will help you guys in your projects. Good day and goodbye.